So, Father Declan, you really wanted this first edition. You got it.
Yes.
But now you're going to give it back.
Yes, well, I really, really wanted to be able to hold my hands, the moment when Therese's message, that message of the little way, when that encountered the world. So I have done that. I'm doing it now.
Hello and welcome to The Way. I'm Wendy Grace and I'm joined now in studio by Father Declan Hurley, who has a very special book in front of him. We're going to hear all about the story behind it and indeed all about the saint behind the book. Well, Father Declan, tell us about it.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you very much. Well, this book is, it's the first edition of the book that will be known to most people in Ireland, I think, as The Story of a Soul. It's the autobiography of St Therese of the Child Jesus and the Holy Face, or known as St Therese of Lisieux, or the Little Flower. Everybody has their own favourite name for St Therese, and I've a big devotion to Therese, and especially from the time when her relics were brought to Ireland in 2001. I was in Mullingar Parish at the time. The relics were coming to the cathedral, and we had a little reading group set up to prepare for her visit, and we read together The Story of a Soul. And since then I've been fascinated by her, and I always had this little dream that maybe one day I would stumble across a first edition of her book. It was published 1 year after her death, published in 1898, and only 2,000 copies were published.
Where did you get it?
Big surprise. I suppose one of the great things about modern life is the internet, and so you can kind of look for things online. And I am interested in old books, particularly old books by Irish priests on the continent back in the penal times, when they were publishing catechisms. I'm always looking for those kind of things, but I always would also have been looking for St. Therese's first edition. I wanted to hold my hands the moment her message met the world, because when she died, there was only 20 people at her funeral. She was unknown, but it was through her book, which was published afterwards, that she became known.
She had such a huge impact and led so many people to faith.
Absolutely massive. Just a few years after this was published, the world was convulsed in war, and the soldiers in the trenches were reading this, and they were really, really struck by her, and she led, as you say, so many people to faith, But just one night during the pandemic, in fact, one night I was just online late at night looking at auctions and seeing what was coming up. And next thing I see, Histoire d'une âme, in French, Story of a Soul, 1898. But I didn't believe it. It was at a house clearance auction in Cherbourg in France. A lot of Irish people know Cherbourg from the ferry. That's where the ferry arrives. And, there was a picture of an old book. And
you're wondering, is it legitimate? Is it for real? Yeah.
I said, no. And I mean, the guide price on it was €60. And I said, no, it couldn't be legit, And so I actually tried to put it out of my mind. And but then the morning of the auction came around and I couldn't put it out of my mind.
You had to go for it.
So I registered for the auction, and the bidding came up, and it started at 60 and it went up 1, 2, 3, and then I joined in and I got it. And I got it for a song, but so I actually didn't believe it was a first edition, because I said there's no way that I could get a first edition like that. So eventually it arrived in the post, and I couldn't believe my eyes that it was a beautiful first edition. But the story doesn't end there, because when I was flicking through the pages, delighted with myself at having come across this first edition, I just noticed some writing. And I said, I wonder what that writing is. And then on one of the blank pages at the very beginning, here, I just noticed ex libris, which means from the books of, or from the library of, belonging to the library of, capital I, Guerin in French. And immediately I was struck, because Therese's uncle, the brother of Saint Zélie, Therese's mother, who paid for the publication of the book, was Isidore Guerin.
Wow.
And I said, could this be could this be his copy? And then on flicking further then, I found a little scrap of paper glued to one of the back pages, and it's all little notes, little biographical notes about St Therese. And at the bottom there's a little phrase, ne pas égarer ces notes, do not lose these notes, IG. So I was in Lisieux back in 2023, and with the archivist in the Carmelite convent in Lisieux, we got a graphologist to examine and to compare this handwriting with Isidore Guerin's handwriting that's preserved in the archive in the Carmel, and it is...
It's legitimate. It is what it thought it is.
Beyond doubt.
So, Father Declan, you really wanted this first edition. You got it.
Yes.
But now you're going to give it back.
Yes, well, I really, really wanted to be able to hold my hands, the moment when Therese's message, that message of the little way, when that encountered the world. So I have done that. I'm doing it now,
When you read it on this particular edition, because obviously you'd read it before.
Yes.
And for people who haven't read it, we're on the way right now. She was known to talk about the little ways. What are the kind of core messages in her book?
It's about her little way of trust and love, And the little way is the conviction that no matter what your state in life, that you can find ways, to be absolutely loving, to bring Christ's love into the world in the little bits and pieces. It's about absolutely believing in the total mercy of God, that God's mercy is capable of absolutely, capturing everything, and that your own little weaknesses and your own failings, your own failures are nothing, when they're caught up in God's mercy. And so therefore, Therese is able to speak about this amazing confidence, trust and confidence. Pope Francis wrote that beautiful letter about St Therese, c'est la confiance. It is confidence, it is trust. And I think that's her key, that ability to just totally, completely trust in God's love and mercy.
Why do you think people are so attracted to St Therese and the life that she had?
Well, I think, everybody knows she's a very powerful saint. And I think I'm feeling that myself, because I really feel that she guided me to this. I really feel that she somehow, her hand guided me to this because she knew that I would know its significance.
And what it meant to you.
Yeah, but it's also its significance from an archival point of view, that this is her uncle's
piece of history.
Who paid for the book, and I think she knew as well that I would probably wanted to go to the right place.
So where is it going to go back to then?
So the parishioners, some of the parishioners in Navan are joining me on a pilgrimage to Lisieux in May, and we're going to present it to the Carmelite convent, to the archives of the Carmelite convent in Lisieux, which I think is where it belongs.
For those who maybe they're watching this now, Father Declan, they're thinking, I don't know a lot about St Therese. Presumably Story of a Soul is a great place to start. What can people learn from her and her life and this piece of work?
Yeah, okay, well, the Story of a Soul, to be slightly complicated about it, maybe slightly technical about it, the Story of a Soul was published in a fairly edited version here in 1898 and continued to be republished, reprinted in that form up until the last of the sisters died in 1959. And it was only after that then that they were able to actually go to the manuscripts and produce the actual words.
The original, yeah.
So nowadays what people are reading will actually be a little bit different to what I have here, even though this is the first edition, even though this was the edition that actually changed the world really, But certainly, yeah, but by all means, if anybody would like to learn more about St Therese, to read a book, The Story of a Soul, it's a beautiful, beautiful read because she brings you through her childhood, and all her little, struggles with her faith and all the little moments of grace, little miracles really, and then when she enters the Carmelite convent and then her life in the Carmelite convent, and then her spirituality. She opens, if you like, a window into her spirituality, which is really, really beautiful. But I would say to anybody, go on to something like the the website of the shrine in Lisieux, go onto the website of the archives in Lisieux to see all those beautiful photographs, to see the little, the texts, little poems that she wrote and composed. The internet is such a wonderful, wonderful.
Can be used for so much good, can't it? It's a great resource, and
it can.
it found you that. It found you that first edition copy.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been lovely just chatting to you, and hearing the story behind such an incredible book, and also getting to know or to be reminded of St Therese. Thanks so much, Father Declan Hurley, for being with us on The Way today.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Thank you.